It's all fun and games until somebody loses an eyeball. Then it's hilarious! Our tale begins in the spring of 1980. I'm a high school junior and I'm doing well in school. I enjoyed school. Apart from the occasional suspension or being banned from a class. Hey, nobody's perfect. But my friends, they lacked my fine attitude towards academics. We're all enrolled together in a mandatory American history class. The class was taught by a guy named Jack Fassman, who was a far better teacher than that school or me or my idiot friends deserved. A genuinely nice guy with unbelievable patience. He was only mellow, cheerful. Looking back, I kind of wonder what he was smoking. My burnout friends were failing Jack's history class, which is impressive since like every mandatory class at that second-rate school, it was dumbed down to the point that any idiot could pass it. But these were not just any idiots, these were my friends. Mr. Fassman wanted these guys to pass the class, not only because he was a good teacher, but he was the only teacher that taught this class in the school, so if they failed, he was going to have to see them again the following year. So he offered them a deal. If they would reenact a scene from American history in front of the class, he'd give them a C-, they'd pass, and he'd never have to see them again. I asked if I could get in on it too. But Ron, you're already getting an A-. But you know these guys are going to need some help. Then I sprang my not very clever trap. Mr. Fassman, can we do any scene from American history? And he gave me the weary look of a man who knew some jerk kid was trying to pull a fast one. He shrugged and he said, yeah, sure, anything. A pint-sized Quentin Tarantino brain came up with the St. Valentines Day Massacre. For those not familiar with it, it's an utterly irrelevant moment in American history when a Chicago mobster named Al Capone arranged a massacre of a rival gang's thugs, machine gunning them into closed casket funerals. My friends, of course, loved the idea. Loud noises, blood, death, what's not to like? So we rigged up a little gadget to fire off wheels of cap gun caps so it would sound like machine gun fire. We got some ketchup packets to simulate blood. We choreographed some awesome spasmodic death throws. We were all set. And then came the best part. One of my burnout pals had a friend at a nearby school, a school that had actual science classes, including biology. At this fancy school with their biology classes, they dissected stuff, including cow eyeballs. Naturally, my buddy had his buddy steal one because you can't use an extra eyeball around. The plan was for him to palm the peeper, and when the shooting started, scream in agony, slap his hand over his eye, and use his thumb to flip the gruesome orb out between his fingers. We were going to give that class a performance to remember. The classroom had little student desks, much like the one in the picture, where the desktop is attached to the chair and sort of wraps around you, you're sitting in it. In the front row was a girl. I don't recall her name. We'll call her Paula. She wasn't a bad person, really. She was just kind of uptight, a little judgmental, and all the rest of us hated her in the way that teenagers hate in petty, judgmental ways. She was sitting right in the front row, which is probably not a great choice for her on that particular day. And so the historical massacre begins. Caps are popping, ketchup is flying, and then my buddy has his Oscar-worthy moment, if Oscar was a guy with one eye. Anyway, he slaps a hand to his face and he pops that sucker out really hard. So hard it flies out of his hand, flies right past me and the other shooters, flies right into the first row, and you can see this coming, lands right between poor Paula's legs, staring up at her. She screams like a woman who's been hit with an unwanted body part. She jumps straight up out of her chair, which is about 4 inches, until she hits the desk attached to the chair, which causes the whole chair and desk combo to topple over on its side with her trapped in it. She's screaming hysterically. She's lost her mind. She's trapped with the eyeball of doom. So she starts trying to run, but she's laying on her side, trapped in the desk. Trying to run, all it does is make the desk rotate slowly on the floor like a Three Stooges routine. The whole thing was horrifying. The class was, no, not horrified. They were hysterical. They were laughing so hard. Not a single kid gets up to help her. 30 kids are laughing their heads off. Mr. Fastman is laughing so hard he's doubled over, and tears are streaming down his face. And the worst part, or maybe the best, is that it just keeps going. Paula keeps spinning, we keep laughing. It goes on for what seemed like forever, but was probably just a couple of minutes. Finally, a few girls in class helped the thoroughly traumatized teen out of her desk of horrors. It was the most cruel, most hilarious thing I'd ever done until about 6 months later when I traumatized 60 small children. But that's a story for another day, and we'll cover that soon. Mr. Fastman said something like, "We're all probably going to get in a lot of trouble for that, but boys, in 20 years of teaching, that was the best extra credit project I've ever seen. You all passed." Oddly enough, we didn't get in trouble. I guess nobody wanted to know where we got that eyeball. I bet poor Paula spent a lot of years and money in therapy. But I can honestly say, in the true spirit of that lousy school, nobody learned a darn thing that day. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the like button. Heck, hit all those buttons. They must do something. I have no idea what. In our next episode, we will get a story in which I get drunk, I end up in the back of a police car, I upset 60 small children. It's a family story. See you next time on Storytime with Uncle Ron.